Hey there, and welcome back to the C Word. My name is Joe Escobedo, and with me today is, once again, Daniel Hachuli.
Hello guys.
Welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about content creation. So how can you go about creating effective content for your organization? So Daniel, a lot of questions I get around in terms of, in-house resources. Do we go about developing content ourselves? Should we outsource it? Should we use a combination? What models have you seen work for some of your clients?
Yeah, I've seen a big mix, right? It depends really on the client themselves and and how they really want to structure their organization. Content marketing doesn't always fit or sit with the marketing team, in my experience. Often, especially in, say, financial services, you tend to see this either as a separate standalone team or as in the communications team and the PR side. So in that respect, how your organization is structured really affects the way whether or not you should be creating this in-house or not. There are pros and cons to both. What I would recommend is if you are going to use an agency to create the content, or you're going to use an agency to measure the content or to buy the media for you and have a partner like that, always keep the strategy in-house. That's one thing I would highly recommend. Nobody knows your brand better than you, but use the agency to consult you on whether or not this is the right path, right? Okay. So the idea is your goals and your metrics will be set. You will be doing the diagnosis and the research around your target audience and knowing your customers better. And I don't really think that important role really should be sent outside. I think there are some really great strategists within agencies and PR firms, and I think you should use them as consultants, but always make sure that you guys are really driving where the type of strategy that is important to you and your brand, as well as your audience. The second thing is, when it comes to content creation, if you are going to distribute this out or outsource it, you need to get your briefs really, really tight. Because one of the things I used to see in my previous life on the agency side is we would get very, very soft briefs or not clear briefs about what to do, and the agency loves to be creative. Right? And so what happens is the agency will go away and create certain things, but they will not necessarily deliver for what you want. And we talked a little bit earlier about building a content mission within the strategy. The content mission, again, is the foundation for all content that needs to go. You need to hold your team or your outsourced team accountable for this with the content mission. Get them to really understand that mission. I would often see clients encouraging either their freelance outsourced work or even their agencies to come and work in-house with the rest of the marketing team 2-3 days a week, just so they get to know the culture of the brand and they start to really understand the brand effectively. So there are ways that you can be very effective collaboratively with agencies and with freelancers in that respect. The problem that you have if you want to keep everything in-house is that scale. The issue is you can only put out as much manpower as you actually have.
Exactly.
And so when you hire an agency or you hire a freelancer to come and work with you, you're effectively giving yourself the opportunity to scale the type of work that you can have.
Yes.
Now that's very important if you are in a arms race in the marketing side, right? So if you're trying to win the conversation around blockchain, 3 pieces of post on your 2-man team is not going to be enough, right? So the idea is you are going to need a lot of people. Specifically, you hire an agency or a freelancer for expertise. So in Asia, marketers in general tend to be jack of all trades because of resourcing issues, right? So we actually tend to be, in my opinion, the best type of marketer in that, or the most dynamic and the most diverse in how we actually can do stuff. However, we are not always specialists or experts in certain areas. The question about asking your team, who's the expert on LinkedIn within your team? Who's the specialist in YouTube right now? If you don't have someone who is a specialist in a specific channel or a specific type of content like video, then you might need to use an agency to help with that and to help them sort of bring out the execution and the polish that you might need for really good quality content. So they're really great to use them for there as well. So scale and quality tends to come with a good collaboration. But I would always suggest that the strategic direction should not be outsourced. Always keep that within the brand is where I would really encourage. But obviously it's important for you to be able to bounce that strategy off your partner, your outsourced partner, in order to get feedback about whether or not that is really reflective of the market, or if you guys are a little bit inside baseball on what we're trying to talk about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, like you said, there are pros and cons of both. Where I've seen like the pros of having a consultant come in is to give an outside view, because when you're in the organization, you're in the brand every day, day in and day out.
Yep.
That's all you see.
Yep.
And a lot of the times you get very pigeonholed in that view,
totally.
and you don't get to see kind of what's going on the outside of your
Totally. Drinking the Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah, exactly. It happens all the time. So I think, like you said, bringing a consultant kind of bounce off ideas is extremely helpful. I also love the idea in terms of the other complaint I hear from brands is that my partner doesn't understand kind of the business. So like you said, bringing them in on a couple days a week to really embed them in the business, make sure they understand how the business operates, how the teams function, can make a big difference in how you work together.
Yep, strong brief, strong content mission, having them working in-house, those three elements will really help them understand the brand. And make sure that they're passionate about what they're creating, right? A lot of agencies might have a person who's across different portfolios, and they might have a travel client, and they have a finance client, and they have an education client. If they're not passionate about what they're doing for your brand, then they're the wrong person and the wrong partner to have. This person and the agency needs to come to you with ideas, needs to come to you with innovations, needs to be informed about where things are. And I want you to challenge your agency around that. They need to be really in bed and really encouraged to be with you. Challenge LinkedIn around that too, right? Like challenge, keep people accountable. You know, if they're really going to be a proper partner from you, they need to know about your brand.
Absolutely. I think another question I get a lot from clients is in terms of the scope of our content. Should we go very broad in our topics? Should we go through things like very trending pieces, or should we go more niche, more focused in our scope? So what are your thoughts on that? What do you...
So I think there's a combination of both works well.
Okay.
So the way to look at this, there's a framework I like to use, which is the 4 content archetypes. And if you're interested, you can read this. I just published a post about this a couple of days ago. It's not my idea. It's come from the Content Marketing Institute and Robert Rose in his book Experiences. However, I think it's a great framework. Essentially, there's only 4 key archetypes here, which is the poet, the professor, the promoter, and the preacher. The poet and the professor are 2 big flagship pieces of content you want to create. Putting a lot of thought into it, a lot of creativity, a lot of budget. And the idea here is to change mindsets at the higher end of the funnel. You want to reach mass amount of audiences with this stuff. It's brand awareness content. It's there to get people to think, to shift the paradigm, to establish thought leadership in a space, right? And so you want to have content there that has mass appeal. Then as you get further down the funnel, you're sort of looking at things like preacher content. And preacher content is really that content that sort of speaks specifically to the tribe that you're targeting. Your IT decision makers, your CXOs that you really want to hit. You want to make content that's quite niche and relevant for them. And the way to do that is to really think about, are you teaching them something? They already know the basics. They're already experts in their field alone. If you want to really be a thought leader, you need to lead in the thought, not follow everybody else. So you need to come up with them with something new, a piece of content that's new. That niche really, really tightly in there, and you need to get in there. But there are, and then the final one is the promoter content, which is kind of your advertising, right? Very brand focused, all about you, all about how great your products are, how great your services are, your comms content, that kind of stuff. And that stuff, you kind of want everyone to know. So you might even broaden that out again. And of course, that content is designed to drive customer action. So you want to have the most transaction off the back of that. And so going too niche on that, unless you have a very, very niche specific audience, it's probably better to go a bit broader.
Okay.
With B2B, and the difference between B2B and B2C on this is, with B2C, in general, unless you're talking high-end luxury, B2C, you tend not to have to consult with other people in order to make a purchase decision. I buy a can of Coke or a toothpaste, I don't particularly need to talk to anybody else about the decision I make there, right? It's often an impulse decision, you don't really need to push that. You can't do that if you're buying a cloud solution for your business, right? Then there is a committee involved, a buying committee. And so the content, you might have a target audience, say you are selling a SaaS product for marketing, and you want to push that out, and you want to target CMOs and really get them, because they're the decision maker on who adopts that SaaS product. Create content for them. Create content that's designed to show them really great features within your product. But you don't just need to convince them, you also need to convince the people around them that probably will use the tool. So this might be your digital manager, it might be a social media analyst, it might be an insights analyst, it might be a community manager within the business organization. So you need to create content around that buying committee as well that's going to appeal to them. So in B2B, the idea is decisions are made by committee, and you need to have content that convinces every committee member that is the right decision. Banks is an interesting one, right? So banks, you might want to target the CTO of a bank or something like that. And with the CTO, you obviously need to satisfy legal and compliance and the business unit's decision makers there, as well as the tech side of the bank. So the content is really diverse when it comes to that on a B2B play.
Yeah.
So those kinds of conversations you really need to think about how broad you can make this. And the best way to think about that on the B2B side is I need to be as broad as to convince everyone within the buying committee who can influence the decision maker, but then I also need to create content that is specific for that decision maker to get the action I want out from them.
It's a very good point. I think for all B2B brands, it's important to, like you said, consider the committee, the people that are influencing decision as well as the decision maker. So not just focusing on that one individual, but like you said, the collective group that's gonna make that decision.
And of course, with a lot of B2B as well, or products in general that are quite expensive. The salesperson has a big role here, right? Word of mouth in general has a big role. Now, you want word of mouth to come from people that they trust, and that might be a fellow colleague or employee, it might be a family member, it might be a friend, it might even be another CMO, right? And so the idea here is to even think about how you can own a topic or own a audience with the content you create. Creating content that is the benchmark for this industry, that the industry would be worse off without it if it did not have this report that your brand created. So make it really differentiating, making it incredibly valuable so that CMOs are sharing this with other CMOs, sharing this with new CMOs, that CMOs themselves want to be attached to the content. Those kinds of content pieces you should really try and focus on. And that's not easy to do, right? Especially if you're trying to stand out in a very saturated place. But it is definitely worth the effort and worth the budget to invest in to try and make that happen. Because the payoff there is a really strong brand affinity set. And the idea behind marketing, not just sales, but behind marketing essentially is you want to bring awareness to your products and to your brand. And then all you really need to do in terms of the content marketing side of it is you want to leave that person thinking that if I was to choose this product today, there would be 3 brands I would call in to have the conversation, and you want to be one of those 3, right? You want to be in the consideration set of the 3 consideration set for them to make that purchase decision. If that happens, they will likely pick up the call and become a lead, and then it's up to the salesperson to drive that convincing home, right? To talk product, price, functionality, and prove that they are going to be a partner within the organization.
Wonderfully said, Daniel. Thank you. Thank you so much.